Hi, I'm Barbara Cutrera, and I'm here today to talk with you about In a Manner of Speaking. In a Manner of Speaking is a mystery novel I wrote. It is the first book I ever published, not the first book I ever wrote, but it's a classic, if you want to think of it that way. It revolves around Neil Landry. Neil is a girl, Neile, and you can read the book and find out why her name is Neil, and Ewan Erskine, and a killer, of course. Neil is a corporate interpreter. She works for Leonard Hathaway. He owns a very huge business, and she has a co-worker named Harry, who is her best friend. He is also a corporate interpreter, and they handle different languages for Mr. Hathaway. Each of them are very facile in their own areas. At Mr. Hathaway's Christmas party at his very large home in St. Francisville, Louisiana, which is near Baton Rouge, which is where the corporate headquarters is and where Neil lives, she meets Ewan Erskine. Ewan is the nephew of Angus Magruder, who owns another very large corporation. And Ewan and Neil meet at this party, and they're attracted to each other mainly because Neil just blows him off. Her personality, she's not good with the relationships at all, with romantic relationships. She had a terrible childhood. Her father, who was in the military, was not very good with her or anyone else. And she lived all over the world, so she's just not really very good at dealing with men in a romantic way. And so Ewan kind of likes this. He likes the way that she blows him off. And they are intrigued by one another, but he's going to be leaving the country the next day, so nothing happens. Except later that night, Mr. Hathaway is killed in a car accident. Harry, who is the other corporate interpreter for the Hathaways, is missing. And Ewan's uncle, Mr. Magruder, dies of a heart attack, supposedly. But when Ewan and Neil meet at the hospital, they start to wonder, is this really the case? They began to look into the men's connections and their connection especially with a global healthcare network that they are trying to begin with other corporate leaders around the world. And they begin to think, this is not a coincidence. There's somebody after these people. So the police are working on the case, of course, but they decide to team up because Neil's best friend is Harry, the other interpreter, and she wants him back. And Ewan is very determined to find out what happened with his uncle because he thought of him as his father because of things that happened in his childhood. So they team up together, and their journey takes them from Louisiana back to where Ewan lives in Edinburgh, Scotland, and into the Highlands area. But things are overshadowed by more murders and by the fact that as a result of some of those gruesome murders, Ewan and Neil, who have by then fallen in love, they end up with his 5-year-old niece, Aubrey. And neither of them has any clue what to do with the 5-year-old child. So they have this lunatic after them and other people. They've got a 5-year-old who's been displaced from her home situation, which was not very good either. And so it sort of throws a little bit of a problem, and I can't even think of the word I'm trying to think of course, but you know what I mean, like a wrench into their already messed up lives at that point. And this does nothing to help Neil's heart problem because she has a congenital heart defect that is not necessarily life-threatening, but it's exacerbated by stress, and she's under a little bit of stress throughout all of this. So I hope that you will read In a Manner of Speaking because there's a lot more to Ewan and Neil's stories, their individual stories, and the story of the killer. I will say that readers of this book keep begging me to have it made into a movie, which I would love to do. If I had the funds to do that myself, it would be a cool movie. Because especially in the last few gripping chapters, they tell me their hearts are beating out of their chest and they're so upset by what's going on with Ewan and Neil and the person who's trying to kill them, etc. And they can just picture it. It's so vivid in their mind. And so if somebody would like to make a movie of this and and back that, I would be all over it. So please contact me. And so I would love that on onmywayuponline.com. But until that happens, readers will have to envision it all for themselves by reading this book and reading the gripping last few chapters and finding out if you and Anil make it and if the killer is stopped. Thank you. Happy reading.